Hello, I'm Kyla Jackson, and my question is how white Southerners justified slavery in the 18th and 19th centuries. In the quote, "I am not ashamed of being a slave owner. I only held them as God has given them to me." These were the words of a Southern plantation owner in the mid 1800s. They reveal not just an economic relationship, but a deeply ingrained belief system, one that allowed white Southerners to justify the brutal institution of slavery for generations to come. Today, we'll explore how these justifications were built, not just on profit, but on a combination of religious, social, racial, and political ideologies. Firstly, I'm going to begin with the economic argument. The Southern economy, especially in states like Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, was heavily dependent on labor-intensive cash crops such as cotton, tobacco, rice, and sugar. These crops required a large, cheap, and controllable labor force. Enslaved Africans provided exactly that. For plantation owners, slavery wasn't just profitable, it was very essential to their wealth and their way of life. They argued that without it, their economy would collapse. As northern industry surged forward with the wage labor, the South doubled down on slavery, creating a regional identity tied directly to the land and to forced labor. But the defense of slavery didn't stop with just economics. Religion was also used as a powerful tool of justification. Many white Southerners pointed to passages in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, where slavery was practiced and not explicitly condemned. Ministers and preachers preached sermons claiming that slavery was part of God's divine order. They insisted it was a moral institution, even going as far as to claim that by enslaving Africans, they were offering them salvation through Christianity and saving their damned souls from going to hell. This twisted interpretation of religion provided a sense of moral righteousness, allowing people to believe they were doing good, even as they were inflicting suffering and brutal, harsh punishment to these enslaved people. Another deeply rooted argument was paternalism. White slaveholders portrayed themselves as benevolent guardians who provided for the people they enslaved. They described enslaved Africans as childlike, lazy, or incapable of surviving on their own. Under this warped logic, slavery was not exploitation, it was care to them. Plantation owners claimed to provide shelter, food, and protection. But in truth, this narrative served to mask the violent and dehumanizing realities of slavery. Paternalism helped white Southerners sleep at night while maintaining a system built on control and cruelty. Central to all these arguments was racism. White Southerners promoted the idea that black people were biologically inferior. Theories entirely unsupported by real science circulated widely. These claimed that Africans were less intelligent, less moral, and naturally suited for hard work and hard labor in hot climates. These racist ideas were not only used to justify slavery, but to also maintain the broader social hierarchy. If one group was considered naturally inferior, then keeping them in bondage seemed not only acceptable but natural. This kind of thinking allowed white Southerners to hold power without questioning the brutality at the core of their society. Finally, there was the legal and political argument, which framed slavery as states' rights issues. Southern leaders insisted that the federal government had no authority to interfere with slavery where it already existed. They pointed to the Constitution's protection of property and argued that enslaved people were legally considered their property. By making slavery a matter of local governance and legal rights rather than a moral question, they tried to shield it from national criticism and maintain political power. So why does this matter today? It's important not to just know what arguments were made, but to understand how they were sustained for so long. The justifications for slavery were not random. They were carefully constructed and deeply woven and sewn into the Southern culture. These beliefs didn't disappear after emancipation. Instead, they morphed into new forms: segregation, Jim Crow laws, racial violence, police violence, and so on. Understanding how white Southerners justified slavery helps us see how dangerous ideologies can become when they are used to uphold injustice. To summarize what I said, white Southerners defended slavery using a complex web of economic needs, religious justifications, paternalistic narratives, racist ideology, and legal arguments. These justifications allowed an entire society to rationalize inhumanity for over 2 centuries. By studying them today, we as a country are not endorsing them, we are confronting them, because only understanding the root of injustice can we begin to dismantle its legacy.